Hi! Today we are going to talk about the two things that I really love, which are plants and horror movies combined. I'll be mentioning movies in no particular order, it's not a rating or anything. The list has both good and not so good movies, but probably you'll find something fun to watch this spooky season. Or any other season. I don't know, it's not a seasonal thing for me. I won't be throwing spoilers left and right, so all good. If you're not really into horrors, don't worry, nothing gruesome is happening in this video. Also, I highly recommend using this website, which is basically a database where you can find a list of triggers for pretty much any movie. Grab your cozy beverage, let's get started! I would like to start with something super obvious, just to express my love and respect and move on to something less obvious. The first on the list is The Little Shop of Horrors. Not particularly a horror film, more of a comedy, but it fits this list perfectly, and it's an immortal cult classic. There are two versions, filmed in 1960 and 1986. Both telling a story about the main green plant from outer space. The newer one is a musical, and I'm not a big fan of the genre, but this film is one of the few exceptions. Keep in mind that some of the songs might get stuck in your head for days, and I'm not joking. You've been warned. The story centers on an awkward guy Seymour who works in a floral shop, and one day he grows an unknown carnivorous plant that, as he later discovers, prefers human blood to any fertilizer.
Blood? You like blood?
He names it Audrey Jr. or Audrey 2 in the second film, after his coworker crush Audrey. At first, things go well and the plant attracts new customers, but later on everything turns to chaos. So the plant is based on a Venus flytrap, big mouth, lots of teeth. It grows into a hideous beast that not only has weird tastes, but also talks and manipulates, the type you wouldn't want to grow in your house. But the look of it is quite iconic. I can't really choose which one of these two films is my favorite. I really love the older version by Roger Corman and featuring very young Jack Nicholson, but it is so extremely low budget and it was filmed in just a few days. Objectively, the newer film is at least of a much better quality and the cast there is fantastic. So let me know your thoughts. Have you watched any of these two films? Up next is probably my personal favorite, The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, based on a science fiction horror novel by Jack Finney, which I sadly haven't read. There are at least 4 adaptations, but we will be talking about the most prominent first two films, filmed in 1956 and 1978. Just imagine, everything looks the same, but it doesn't feel the same. There is something wrong and you can feel it, but you can't explain it. The closest people are not themselves. They don't look different, they remember everything, but they kinda devoid of emotion.
He's your Uncle Ira, all right?
He is not.
And the whole city changed overnight. Is it just paranoia? Is there something wrong with you? Oh well, I'm afraid not. Quiet invasion is going on right here, right now. And soon you might notice some big weird seed pods that produce identical copies of people. Another creepy stuff from outer space. Alien parasite spores landing on the Earth to replace the human race by spawning emotionless replicas. The atmosphere in these films is terrific. Suspense, sense of paranoia, despair. The first movie might seem a bit naive nowadays, but I'm a big fan of older horror movies. The music there is amazing, the spooky atmosphere is just on top. Also, Carolyn Jones, aka my favorite Morticia Addams, plays a supporting character there. The newer version is much darker, and I love it just as much. The cast there is amazing. Also, the house where Elizabeth, one of the main characters, lives, is so beautifully decorated with all the familiar houseplants. It's just nice to feel the vibes of a crazy plant lady from the 70s. I absolutely love these two films and they are fun to watch even one after another. That's what I did before filming this video, so highly recommend. How do you like your vegetables? Do you
Boil it, stew it, bake it, fry it?
The next one is another oldie but goodie, The Thing from Another World, 1951. You've probably watched The Thing, released in 1982. If you haven't, do yourself a favor. It's a truly brilliant, really scary film, and it's based on the same novel as the movie we are going to talk about, but it has nothing to do with plants. The Thing from Another World, on the other hand, is much more loosely based on the book, which is Who Goes There by John Wood Campbell Jr. The main plot centers on the research base and its crew who find a crashed flying saucer frozen in the Arctic ice and humanoid body composed of vegetable matter. And this bloodthirsty super carrot man wakes up hungry. The film is obviously not scary and probably too slow-paced for modern standards, but it has that perfectly spooky atmosphere of isolation, and I think it's a perfect film of its kind. And it's classic. And let's be honest, horror movies don't have to be scary. Sometimes they are more than just that. And you know, those 50s horrors have their own special charm, right? Let's talk about a bit newer one. Little Joe, 2019. This psychological horror-esque drama thriller something tells us a story about a workaholic single mother who works as a senior plant breeder in a big company. People already have genetically modified houseplants that are super durable and can thrive while you're on your nice long vacation, and this company is working on something new. They are trying to cultivate a new flower that would require more care but would also produce a nice scent and literally make their owners happy. But this plant is sterile and needs people to survive and reproduce. The flower itself looks cool and bizarre, maybe hilarious at times because it has no leaves whatsoever. Anyways, I didn't know about this one, so it was my first time watching it, and I would say it's the invasion of the body snatchers in disguise. I like the colors, I like the camera work, I like the idea, and that's basically it. You know, it's very artsy. And don't get me wrong, I love a good, weird art house movie, but it's just simply not. I'm sorry if this is your favorite film. You know, it's almost painfully slow, and it has the weirdest choice of music. Like, at first it starts like something folk or maybe oriental even, but then it turns to high-pitched noises and dogs barking. Like, I'm not even joking, listen for yourself. I'll reduce the volume just in case, so don't worry. So, did I regret watching it? No. Would I recommend it? No. But I'm not the one to tell you what to do, right? The next on the list is Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, 1965. A single film composed of 6 stories, the main storyline, and 5 short stories. 5 random men in the same train compartment and 1 mysterious man who reveals their destinies. The film has everything: vampires, werewolves, voodoo rituals, and killer plants. So only one story is dedicated to the subject. It centers on a family coming back home from vacation and noticing a weird fast-growing vine in their garden. The plant looks like any other plant, so nothing super special or bizarre about it, but soon it reveals its intelligence and murderous intentions. I won't lie, this film is definitely not my favorite. I really enjoyed the main storyline and 2 out of 5 short stories. Not quite enough in my opinion, but this particular planty one was really fun. If you know this film, try to guess what was the second story that I really enjoyed, and I want to know your opinion on the movie. The next is quite iconic, The Day of the Triffids. The original story is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi novel by John Wyndham, and I think it aged very well, so if you haven't read it, go ahead, read it. I think it's safe to recommend it because it's very good. Unfortunately, to this day, we don't have any movie adaptation that would do it justice. However, there are a few versions released in 1963, 1981 and 2009. So most people become blind overnight, and humanity has to face not only the breakdown of society, but also another threat, an aggressive species of plant ready to take advantage of this situation. The Triffids are tall, have 3 root-like sprouts that allow them to move, and they have a venomous stinger, very menacing, and their origin remains unknown. I've watched the first adaptation a couple of times, and I really like it. I think it's very naive and cute, even though it's very loosely based on the book. The design of the Triffids is a bit weird to my taste, but they make a very cool sound, very vibey. The 1981 version is a BBC miniseries and it's much more faithful to the source material than the rest of the adaptations. It has that feel of the zombie movie, but there are no zombies, only desperate people. And the story focuses on how they struggle to figure out the best way to organize themselves in a post-apocalyptic world. It might look a bit dated nowadays, but it has the nostalgic atmosphere, if you know what I mean. And this version has the coolest Triffid design in my opinion. They look both silly and creepy and very decent for the time and the budget. As for the latest adaptation, this is also a miniseries, there are 2 films, and I forced myself to watch the first part, and I really forced myself to look through the second part. So the story gets a new eco makeover to sound a bit more modern. People use Triffids as a source of clean, renewable energy, and when the world goes blind, they escape and cause trouble. The biggest problem with this adaptation is poor script and nonsense dialogues. And also, with modern CGI capabilities, this could be a good film, but it's just a wasted opportunity. You know, I feel like it's time for a remake. I am ready, and I still hope that one day we'll get a decent movie about the Triffids. Up next is The Ruins 2008. I remember watching this film when it was first released, and I still keep some of the scenes right there in my head. And I had to revisit this movie before filming this video, and I didn't regret it. Of course it's not perfect, but it's a good one. The story follows 2 couples on vacation in Mexico who decide to check out some unmarked Mayan ruins. They find themselves trapped on the top of the pyramid with some weird vines growing all over it. Quite normal looking plants, except they are not. I would say the film is very 2000s, not as something bad of course. It has a lot of cliches, like it's about a group of young people making the worst decisions. Even though the main characters are not very likable and there is no one to really cheer for, this doesn't ruin the film. Apparently the movie is based on a novel and its rating is pretty high. So if you read the book, please let me know if it's good or not. I feel like it might be a very good one. The next film was also released in 2008. It's The Happening, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. No killer plants as such, no carnivorous beasts from outer space, but something very plain and very familiar. So nature decides to reduce population, and it makes people do it with their own hands, if you know what I mean. Another story with a massive post-apocalyptic vibe. And yet again, I remember watching this film when it first came out, and I remembered a few sequences, but I later discovered that all those scenes were from the first 20 minutes of the movie, and the reason is that the movie is just not good enough to remember it. It received poor reviews, but later it was claimed that the film was just misunderstood and it was an attempt to create a B-movie. I don't know what to say. This movie seems too damn serious for a movie that is bad on purpose, and it looks too stupid for a serious movie. So I don't know, I think it's very inconsistent, and I can't say that this movie is so bad that it's good. To me, it's just not good.
We're just here to use the bathroom, and then we're just gonna leave. I hope that's okay.
I wasn't sure if I should include this one. You know, I just didn't want to pass my trauma, but I feel like this film is kind of brilliant and it belongs to this list. So here you go, you're welcome. I'm talking about Little Otik by Czech film director and animator Jan Švankmajer. This is a surreal dark comedy horror based on a fairy tale about a really hungry anthropomorphous tree stump. A couple, desperate but unable to have children, brings home a tree stump that remotely resembles a baby, I guess. Gradually, this obsession brings this piece of wood to life and things go rapidly out of hand. And this is the film you want to check for triggers. It is disturbing on so many levels and it has so many controversial sequences, but it's a real artwork in my opinion. The movie is not enjoyable by any means. Constant newborn baby cries, weird fixation on food, which is sort of Švankmajer's trademark, but it represents the cinema from a different artistic perspective, and it's certainly a unique experience. It's not only an unsettling dark comedy, but also a very clever social satire. The first time I watched this movie was in high school, many years ago, and this wasn't the first film by this director. I was already in love with his version of Alice in Wonderland, so I was kinda prepared, and I was excited to rewatch it now. Turns out it still gives me creeps. I should also mention a 30-second short animated film Flora, created for MTV in 1989. Another nightmare fuel, showing a plant-based person rotting in bed. Literally. Go watch this one, it's only 30 seconds and it's on YouTube, I'll add the link. A couple bonus movies to finalize this list. Annihilation 2018 and Color Out of Space 2019. They don't focus on plants, but they show some peculiar, changed, mutated plants and nature in general as the result of alien presence. So these movies don't really fit the list, but I feel like I have to mention them, first of all because they're very good, second of all they have plants, and the effects there are glorious. These movies are very visually pleasing and very gross at times. I think these two movies are great. The second may be a bit less mainstream. It's a Lovecraftian horror movie with Nicolas Cage, like, say less. So that's it. Let me know your thoughts, maybe I forgot something and you have some recommendations. Any recommendations are highly appreciated. Also, this is my very first YouTube video. Thank you for watching, and I'm not sure about the future of this channel. I was thinking about something cozy, like craft with me, hang out with me kind of style, plants and horrors involved, but I don't know, and you won't know unless you subscribe. And the very last thing, I might have made an intro for this channel, but I was too shy to use it as an intro, so here is the outro. Okay, thank you, bye!